Our rural news team is at the 56th National Agricultural Field Days at Mystery Creek near Hamilton, which opened on Wednesday. And there's been some big news from the government.
Well, firstly, the government has confirmed agriculture will not enter the emissions trading scheme. Agricultural emissions, unlike emissions from every other sector, are not priced and are not part of the ETS. The sector was going to join the ETS by 2025, but the government says it will now be kept out of the scheme. It's also immediately disbanding He Waka Eke Noa, the government-industry partnership that had come up with a way to price on-farm emissions. It's being replaced with a pasture sector group, which will include groups like Dairy New Zealand, Beef and Lamb New Zealand and Federated Farmers, to come up with solutions to reduce emissions. Minister of Agriculture, Todd McClay, says it's time for a fresh start on how the government engages with farmers and processors to work on biogenic methane.
The primary industries have said they will meet their obligations to, reduce emissions, but they need to do so in such a way as it doesn't just put up costs and put farmers out of business. We are disbanding He Waka Eke Noa. The primary sector and rural communities have no faith in it anymore, and we need to build a collaborative approach to find these solutions. The New Zealand economy depends upon it, but so do people around the world that want to buy the high-quality food that our farmers produce.
Chair of Beef and Lamb New Zealand, Kate Ackland, says farmers don't need a financial axe to force them to change.
I mean, it looks as though the sheep and beef sector particularly, but all of agriculture, is actually on track to exceed the 2030 targets. So a price is just not needed. And regardless, we don't think a price is the right tool.
And the government has announced an inquiry into rural banking.
Yes, the Primary Production and Finance Expenditure Select Committees will be scrutinising rural bank lending practices. Rural lenders generally face higher interest rates than their urban counterparts. Federated Farmers banking spokesperson, Richard McIntyre, says it's great farmers' concerns have finally been heard.
There's a really uneasy feeling that comes with not knowing if your bank is going to keep on funding you going forwards, whether or not they will extend your overdraft if you do go through tough times. We all know with farming that it's a 3 to 5 year cycle, right? You're not just farming for one season. You're farming through business cycles, commodity prices, and also weather cycles. You'll have droughts some years and you won't make any money, and then you'll grow a heap of grass other years and you'll make some money, right? So farmers want to know that the banks will actually help them get through it.
Over to horticulture now, and avocado growers are hoping for a successful season this year.
Most have had 2 really rough seasons in a row, meaning very little in way of returns. Last year, bad weather meant a lot of the fruit was not good enough to export. It flooded the domestic market, pushing down returns for growers. Seeka grows about 90 hectares of avocados and helps other growers pack and sell their fruit. Chief Executive Michael Franks says the last season was hopeless, with most growers running at a loss. But picking has just begun for the new season, and things are looking brighter.
Last year, the export pack-out percentage was very low. Normally, we would have an export pack-out between sort of 50 and 65%, somewhere in that range. Last year, it was like 25 to 35%. And so this year's crop, thankfully, looks more normal. And so we're pretty happy and excited about what's going to happen in front of us.
Meanwhile, a smaller apple crop could mean the fruit is in shorter supply.
New Zealand Apples and Pears says the exportable crop is 11% lower than estimates made earlier in the season, with 18.9 million tray carton equivalents heading offshore. This has been put down to the lingering impacts of last year's Cyclone Gabrielle and spring weather conditions. While the numbers are down, fruit quality is up. Hawke's Bay Fruit Growers Association President Bryden Nisbet says growers are eagerly awaiting to see what returns they'll fetch overseas.
So it was a good harvest as far as weather, probably the best we've had in a few years. The crop was good, a little bit smaller than normal, but it was a good crop. Now we just need to get good returns in the markets overseas, which is really the pinch point for growers. The cost of growing has increased, labour costs, compliance, etc., shipping costs. So the price we get needs to continue to be higher than normal just so that the growers can make some dollars.
And many veggie growers are hurting from record low prices.
That's right. A national surplus of vegetables and low prices means some growers are losing hundreds of thousands of dollars a month. Co-owner of Horowhenua-based Woodhaven Gardens, Jay Clark, says most growers are talking to bankers to get financial cover so they can keep planting crops.
I've heard of growers losing north of $500,000 a month, and you can't do that for very long and then go into a weather event where you end up with no production because you get crop loss, and that will be very, very impactful for the growers if that does happen. There will be some people that it's pretty dire out there for.
And kiwifruit growers' pay packet for this season might be delayed.
Yes, that's because of insurance woes around a mouse-infested shipment of fruit to Europe. 1.2 million trays of kiwifruit were destroyed after mice were found on a shipment from New Zealand when it arrived in Belgium. Colin Bond, Chief Executive of grower group NZKGI, says they don't expect to hear the result of negotiations between Zespri, its insurer and the shipping company anytime soon.
It's likely that the Zespri will need to make a provision for any insurance claim. So that means that growers won't receive that money till that process has been finalised. So that could mean they don't get that money this season. Might need to wait for another 1 or 2.
And lastly, a new water catchment collective has been formed in Tairawhiti.
The Tairawhiti Catchment Collective Group will help locals with riparian planting and fencing waterways. It's just had a $2 million funding boost from the government for its Leading from the Land project over the next 4 years. Group facilitator, Shana Cairns, says they're thrilled with the funding.
We're one of the most highly erodible areas in the world, so sediment in our waterways have always been an issue. We're definitely on the improve. The council have done an awful lot of work to get logs and debris out of the waterways, but we're really challenged in the region. So that's why we all need to get together collectively to work on what is a complex scientific issue and also learn from the history of the region, the knowledge within the region, and network to do what's right for those waterways.
And that's the Rural News Wrap this week.
Country Life, bringing you the sounds and voices of rural New Zealand.